Tracie Thoms, and I'm here with FrConventions. So it turns out I had no audition process for Station 19. I had worked with Christopher Vernoff way back at the beginning of my career in 2002, 4, on a show called Wonder Falls. It's about 2003, 2004, something like that. And she was a writer, staff writer on that show. So we kind of kept in touch over the years, and we worked together a couple of times. So yeah, she just called me. We just all of a sudden got an offer out of nowhere, and then she called me and said, I wrote this role. I think you'd be great in it. So yeah, so the audition process was basically just me working with Krista over and over again over the years until she finally found this character that she loved for me. And they just literally offered it to me, and it was a gift from like the heavens. I love Dr. Diane Lewis so much, and I'm just so happy she thought of me. Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of people don't like the idea of therapy. They think therapy is bad or boring or painful, and they don't understand how it is so helpful to talk things out with someone who can guide them through how to manage their emotional life and their thought processes. And I think it's so interesting and smart of Krista to create this character, Diane Lewis, that is one of them. So because she was a firefighter, because she didn't speak like a therapist or behave like a therapist or look like a therapist really, she kind of let their guard down a bit, you know, because she can speak to them where they live. So it's really a gift to them all, and also it's a gift to Diane as well to be able to talk to them, because Diane has her own trauma of, you know, losing the ability to be a firefighter, and she has her own life. She's a divorced single mom of teenage kids, and so they all help each other kind of in a way. And she has a perspective on things that will help them just look at things a different way, you know. And it's not necessarily like, let me break you down, let me just whatever, unless you need it. And if you need it, and you're gonna bring it. Yeah, what I love about Station 19 and kind of all of Shonda Rhimes shows, they're just fearless. They are not afraid to tackle the hard, difficult topics. And George Floyd, that moment was such a global phenomenon because we're all, you know, stuck in the house for the pandemic, so people couldn't look away. Racial injustice is something we've dealt with in this country, particularly in this country since the beginning of it. And we as a country don't want to deal with it, and we shy away from it. And when you're busy and you're working and you're going to school and you're doing whatever you are doing in your life, it's easier to look away. But in that moment, everyone was on lockdown and they could not look away from what had happened right in front of their face with George Floyd. And I think it was a brilliant move on their part at Station 19 to address it in an episode, because the world really was grieving. The entire world was grieving over that death. So, and however they were dealing with it. So I was so honored that they had Diane come back. You know, Diane being a black woman, I think was a perfect person to come and like, let's talk about it, and didn't, you know, and I loved that I was allowed, as Diane, to explore her own emotional life with it. She didn't talk about it, but it was there. She didn't have to be like a stoic, neutral figure as a therapist. She had her own skin in the game. So it was a really interesting exploration for me, and I really loved being part of it. It's interesting, and I'm putting this together right now. In the first episode, I come in and I talk about how Diane was a firefighter, and I rappelled out of a helicopter and shattered my leg, and my team had to come and save me, and in the same moment, while they were saving me, a dog was killed in the fire, and how this moment of failure of Diane's was just shattering to her. How she laid in the bed and she blamed herself and she couldn't get out of the bed until a therapist helped her get up. So I think having gone through it herself. Diane knows that moment. She knows that darkness that Maya's in. And she's like, I know this, let me get in there and help her get up, you know. So because she had been through it, and because also she'd been through her training, she knew exactly what Maya needed. And it was such an interesting episode to shoot because, you know, we as actors, you know, we want to get in there and get that gritty stuff, but our desire to go to those dark places doesn't always produce that. We have to, it's a process to get there. We want to go there, but how do you get there, and how do you work with the other person in the scene to make this happen? So I knew that my job as Tracie and as Diane was to service Maya and Danielle. So get there, and Danielle's like, you gotta help me with this, Tracie. And I'm like, I'm here. Let's get into it. So we just really dug in and just pushed each other, and I pushed her as hard as I could because I knew Tracie, the actor, needed to push Diane. Tracie, the actress, needed to push Danielle, the actress, and Diane, the character, needed to push Maya, the character, to have her have this breakthrough. So it was like, it's very meta. It's like, Danielle has to have this breakthrough so that Maya can have this breakthrough, and I have to push Danielle so that Maya can have the breakthrough. So it feels like real therapy when you're doing it. You know, I mean, acting is kind of therapy anyway, on some levels. And that scene and that day of work in particular it felt like an actual session of therapy. And at the end of it, we just hugged each other for a long time. I was so proud of her because she really just put herself in the most vulnerable state that she could. She was willing to go there, and Danielle was fearless anyway. You know, she's like, just unlock me, just give it to me, Doc, fix me, you know. And I'm like, let's do it. So it was very, very rewarding, and I knew it would be a special episode if we did it right. So therefore, we had to get it right. Well, I think every time Diane shows up, if she's doing any kind of therapy session, because she does like drive-by therapy sometimes, and she's like, hey, I'm just here to drop off a pie, by the way. Let me give you this lesson, Vic. And that was interesting, giving Vic that lesson about, you know, about how the brain protects ourselves from emotional trauma. But you have to, like, just giving, Diane gets right to it, you know what I mean? What I love about her, she gets right to it. She's like, well, you're blaming yourself because you didn't love him back, and that's not fair, blah, 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 blah. Here, enjoy the pie, and goodbye, she's out. Lesson. I love her for it. But the first episode, I felt like I was going through some things in my own personal life, and like every scene, I feel like every scene in the first episode spoke to me. You know, I was going through like a breakup at the time, but it was like a friendship breakup. It was really kind of traumatic for me, and there was also like romantic stuff happening. It was a very tumultuous time in my life. So every scene I felt it was actually for me. And there was a scene when I'm talking to Andy she's talking about her affair with Sullivan, and she's just like, oh, it makes you feel electric, makes you feel alive or whatever. And I'm like, that's not love. And I was like, oh, is that for me? The whole, like, that feeling we all think love is. No, love is calm. Love is calm. Whatever that other thing is, that's something else. And we should explore that something else is. And every time she opened her mouth, every time I opened my mouth, I was learning from the words that Krista had me saying. So Diane has been such a gift, and she's actually helped me grow so much as a person. And I am so grateful that Diane can also help the world grow in their own ways. You know, and everybody has a lesson. Like people today coming like, oh, the one scene you had with Travis, and you're telling him to give himself permission and to give himself credit for being brave for coming out and being a gay man. And I'm like, oh, right, because someone I talked to earlier, that impacted her immensely because she's never given herself the credit and given herself, you know, a pat on the back for being brave. Yeah, so there's lessons everywhere with Diane.